Good morning and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Business Minds. I'm Cindy Byrd, and my co-host is
Melissa Smith.
And we are so pleased today to be joined by Sandy Sanders. You're going to hear a little bit more from Sandy this morning and about her business and what brings her to the show today. Our topic today is strategic objectives and key strategic indicators. And we told you last week when we talked about vision and mission that we'd be leading into the next phase of that whole strategic planning element. Our topic for January overall is planning and how important that is for your business. But we also told you that we're going to have some fun today in talking about this topic. It sounds pretty dry, as we said last week, but we're going to plunge right in, first of all, by starting to get to know our guest more, and I'm going to turn it over to Sandy.
Thank you, Melissa and Cindy, for inviting me today. My company is Really Design, and I make quilted art that tells a story. Behind us is actually a story quilt about my business and my passion to rise and shine and design every day. Just to give you a little history, my passion in the past was sustainability issues.
Okay.
And for the past 10 or 12 years, I have learned all different aspects of sustainability, building homes, energy, sustainable food sources, but the one that kind of hit home when I started getting back to my passion of sewing and love of fabric was the fashion industry and the textile waste. So I think 16 million tons of fabric is thrown in, or 16 million tons is used in America. 16 million tons is wasted, but only 2/3 of that is recycled. So
Amazing.
As part of my design aesthetic and mission, I wanted to address that. And so in this quilt, it has 90% of the fabric was recycled, which is just
fantastic.
tiny.
Awesome,
Yeah. I mean, it's a tiny bit in the scale of things, but that is what I wrote into my mission statement, that I would like to create meaningful fabric art for my customers that reflect their memories, their passion, and their purpose.
Okay.
And then in my design aesthetic, I want to emphasize the repurpose, recycling, and reuse of fabric.
Okay. And you shared a mission statement with us that you came up with. I have it here if you want to.
Yeah, that's kind of
it.
what
Yes.
I was just
Why don't you
talking
share
about.
that with our viewers.
To create meaningful fabric art or quilts for my customers that reflect their memories, passion, and purpose. Sustainability issues are a very important part of my design process, with emphasis on repurpose, recycle, and reuse of fabrics. That's kind of what I was just referring to.
So what we'd love for you to tell us is what brings you to the show today? You know, what are those questions you have when you look at the topic of strategic objectives and key strategic indicators, more importantly, strategic objectives? What are the challenges that come to your mind or that you've experienced in your business, Sandy?
I think with creative people, you have so many ideas.
I can relate to that.
It's hard to hone them in. And, even as I was talking about my sustainability, I went from, one thing to the next to learn everything because I'm so curious.
Sure.
And with my art, I do the same thing. I want to tell everybody's story and their memories, so I make memory quilts. But also I want to help businesses create maybe some kind of art that could tell their story.
So you said you had listed some things you wanted to accomplish, and they were more long-term, but you tend to have a new idea that comes your way, and you want to go off that direction instead. We're gonna talk about that today. And David Allen, who's the person I consider to be the productivity guru out there in the business world, and I've followed his works for a long time. He said, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. I've never forgotten that quote of his. So Melissa brought some background. She and I have talked at length about our perspectives as to what is a strategic objective. And we want to share some of that with you right now because as we discovered, what did we discover?
We discovered that the old way still works. So
the old way still works. And also there's not one consistent common definition of what is a strategic objective out there. Some people say it's the same thing as a goal. Some people say if it's a strategic objective, it's supposed to be longer term, and then your operational objectives are more the shorter term. Okay. I think based on where you're at, Sandy, and what you're looking for with your business and the challenges you're currently dealing with, what we want to do with you today is to talk about how do you identify your strategic objectives.
Yeah, because I have a list of goals, but how are goals, reflected in your plan, and how do you prioritize them?
Sometimes it helps to think of it in a hierarchy type of visual. You're a very visual person, being a designer, is to say at the top is your vision, and then it's your mission, and then it's your strategic objectives, and then that drills down into more of an operational, more day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month type of plan. Bottom line overall is, though, everything you're doing should be all about how can you be more strategic in your choices of how to create value for your customers. And that's really what we want to hone in on a little bit today, too. So that traditional tool, what are we bringing today?
So, Sandy, thank you for joining us today. As Cindy said, if you think of it in a hierarchy, you can kind of stop. Today we're going to stop at the bottom of the first top of the triangle. So you've got vision and mission, and then strategic objective, kind of tie those together, and then you can go into goal planning from there. So you've got goals, which is great. Strategic objective, understanding, having just a common understanding of strategic objective is so important because those goals, you want to make sure that they are moving you up that hierarchy towards that vision and mission. So today we're bringing you a traditional tool. In many of our discussions, Cindy and I said there are such great new creative ways to get things done now with all of the technology we have in the business world and all of the resources that we have that weren't available years ago, even 5 years ago. But sometimes it's good to go back to the basics. We would always encourage you to do a business plan, an annual plan, set goals, those kind of basics. And this tool that we're bringing to the table today is a SWOT analysis. And it's basically an assessment to see what your strengths are, weaknesses, your opportunities, and threats to those opportunities for you to grow. And I like to tell Cadence clients and our business minds, folks that we've been talking to, that if you focus on the opportunities and your strengths, the weaknesses will naturally follow as you grow in your strengths. And a SWOT analysis really allows you to take objective stock of what's your current situation? Where are you really sitting? So that's what we wanted to do with you today, is kind of go through.
I remember that from college days. We talked about that.
I'm glad, as a former college professor, I'm glad you remember that you studied that in college.
Yeah. Well, listening to the marketing class.
Yeah.
Well, the heart of strategy is creating value for your customer, as I mentioned. And I made a quick list of things that came to my mind when I was thinking about, well, what does that mean if I use SWOT analysis as a tool? It means I can look at where am I creating value and where am I not creating value. And that should arise when you do take a look internally at your strengths and weaknesses. Where do you have an opportunity to create additional value?
Yep.
That's looking at that external, what's going on outside of your business. It's a trend. It's something that's totally separate from your business that might be going on. What threats or weaknesses could get in the way of or undermine your attempts to create that value you're wanting to create? And lastly, what strengths could support you in creating value and pursuing new opportunities, which is exactly what Melissa was just saying, ultimately. So let's get started. Let's plunge into the worksheet. Do you want to get us underway?
Yeah, we're not going to put you on the hot spot. You
No,
don't have
I'm
to
like,
answer any
of all these
questions too
things
specifically.
right now.
Each of the blocks on the SWOT analysis have some questions, just kind of get you thinking. Under strengths, one of the first questions is, what do you do well? What are you good at? Because you always want to start there, right? Even when you're going on a new venture, you really want to focus on, well, what is it that you do well so you can capitalize off that, really leverage your current strengths. And what do you do better than any others? I'd say right now, I can pick up right off the bat is that you probably, as far as someone who's creating a marketing piece, because that's what this would be for a business, you do well in telling a story. This isn't just a graphic, right? You do well in telling a story behind a piece for other people and using things that are meaningful for them. For this piece, you said it's 90% reused material. Does that material come from you? Does it come from pieces from the clients? Is it a combination of both? Combination of both. So that's a strength right there, is that you're using something meaningful to them. It's not just a printout. It's not just a graphic. So what do you do well, in your opinion, as far as being able to tell that story for your client, for your businesses?
What do
you do well?
Do well? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be taking notes.
No,
No. Say that again. I'm sorry.
What do you do well? So do you feel when you meet with a client, do you ask questions to get the story behind them? Are you intuitive? Are you just naturally intuitive? And does that work well for your business?
Well, I feel like I am very interested in other people and their stories.
Very good.
So, and I like to please people. I'm a people pleaser. So when I create something for someone else, and it makes them happy because it's meaningful for them.
Okay,
and
very
I
good.
feel like that is my purpose. But my strength, I guess, is being able to interpret what they're wanting.
Very
There
good.
you go.
Yeah, that's important.
A lot of people feel like they're not creative. Somebody was telling me that recently. But I try and say, yes, you're creative, but if you're not able to create, you can tell me what you want to create, and I can help create your vision.
Bring it to life. Yeah. So in working with your clients and creating these pieces, what have others given? What if they complimented or commended your work on? What do they see in you as a strength? What's something that you've heard time and time again?
I guess they just, I don't know. They feel like what I create, they're always really happy.
Okay, very good. So they agree with your intuition and your ability to interpret. That's good.
I haven't had anybody say they hate it.
Very good. Yeah.
No, usually people are very pleased to be able to create something, from nothing.
Sure.
Actually, I mean, it could be something meaningful, but it's to recreate, I guess.
Right. And then one of the last questions on kind of analyzing your strengths is, what are you proud of? And I would say you're repurposing and reusing, and just the sustainability that comes through in your work is something you're really proud of, and you should be, right?
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So.
I hope to do more. I mean, this is a small part of recycling, and the more I do, I'd like to develop some products in the future that utilize repurposed fabric or recycled fabric.
Very good.
That's in my list of goals.
Okay. So thinking about that goal, that's something that we'll put on, I'll say, a back burner for right now, because that's an important one that you're mentioning to us. Let's work through the rest of this and see if there are things that indicate that's a direction to move. Especially,
is there an opportunity
especially is there an opportunity out there?
So if we move on to the next block on the SWOT analysis, and again, this is a very traditional tool for our guests viewing, and thank you for joining us. The SWOT analysis is very traditional, as Sandy mentioned. She heard of it in her marketing class in college. And the next box is weaknesses. So you've already stated that what you could do better is kind of stay more focused. And sometimes it's a little hard to do that if you don't have an objective perspective, knowing that that focus could actually hinder your progress. So this exercise kind of helps that focus is one of those things that could be your weaknesses. And sometimes just identifying our weaknesses is key in helping us to overcome them. So we'll put down focus, and
Focus is my weakness.
focus is focus is your
Only if
weakness.
you agree.
No, only if you
based,
agree.
Based on what you
Yeah,
told us,
that's
Sandy,
true. Yeah.
you said you're a creative thinker, you're a creative
Right.
type, you're a designer, so you tend to get off
Yes,
on a
yes,
new
yes.
idea. Okay, so that was why we put.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you for clarifying.
It actually is, because I'm right in the middle of a project where I'm creating a series, and then I meet you guys, and you tell me about your vision, and then I'm wanting to create something for you, and so I'm like, oh, maybe I should segue over. No.
Well, I think in all fairness, that doesn't seem out of focus to me. That's just saying I see a new client potentially.
Right, an
There,
opportunity.
I see an opportunity. So it would be to reframe your thinking and how you your mindset about that. That it's not that it's a totally new project, but that's part of creating this whole framework. This with the strategic objectives is it allows you to say a resounding yes. Does that help me get closer to that end goal I'm looking for achieving, or is it taking me in a completely different direction that's not helping me get where I want to go? That being said, I want to make clear to everybody your strategic objectives don't have to be set in stone, nor should they be. I'll give you a quick example from the corporate world. In 2005, Caterpillar launched their Vision 2020 to take them to the year 2020, a 15-year plan, specific strategic objectives. Do you think that plan changed in 2008? You're darn right it did. And beyond. So those things can change based on what's going on. That's why this looking outside of your business is such an important piece of it. So are there other things, though, that you
That's
think
true.
should make it to your list of challenges or things that you would label as weaknesses?
Is there anything in your day-to-day work with your business that you avoid that just doesn't seem fun to you? So sometimes in working with my Cadence clients, they avoid doing cash flow statements because it's just not something that appeals to them. And then inevitably, managing cash becomes a problem, right? Because if you constantly avoid taking care of a task, it's easy to overlook it time and time again. Is there anything in your business that you perhaps avoid?
Now that you mention it, of
good
course,
question.
I do not like the financial part of business.
Okay.
Okay.
That is very true.
One of my groups that I follow very closely is the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and they say part of building a strong team is recognizing the aspects that just aren't your favorite to do. And that's okay, because we're not all going to be good at the accounting part. We're not all going to be good at, managing personnel. We have to lean on others to help us with that. And part of recognizing that is just asking the question. So if finances is something you avoid, it could inevitably be a weakness for you. But in order to grow a good, strong business, a viable business, that's something that you'll have to work through to figure out a plan to overcome, whether it's contracting out, whether it's just digging in and saying once a month I'm going to do it and I'm just going to swallow it and make sure that I get it done. But saying it out loud is really, really powerful.
It is, and when you do that, it's a validation. You're being honest with yourself, but it also could point you in the direction of a strategic objective. That might be something that's going to get in the way of you being able to move forward to pursue those strategic goals. Maybe it's getting in the way of you having the resources that you need in order to pursue an opportunity that's out there. And if that's so, then you backtrack. While you've got that other goal out there, maybe the real objective is I need to look at contracting out, or I need to be more financially stable by, 3 years from now, or I need to have a better grasp of what my financial situation is. I don't have to learn to like it. I don't like working with that side of a business either. But what are you going to do about it? If you were to say that's a key issue, because one thing you look back at here and you say, what are the most glaring things? What's surprising you the most from this?
Planning cost and
Okay.
going back and counting time.
Okay.
A lot of
Good.
my product is my time.
Okay, so you just answer the next question. So what are some items that you might need to face up to? So time logging and product cost tracking.
right.
Okay, very good.
Going back and trying to figure out how much did I spend on this. And when I listen to shows about business, you always try and mark up your product a certain amount. And
Sure.
all that type of thing is something I avoid.
Okay.
It's like I just want to create. I just want to create something.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really good.
Really
So
good.
that is
Something
definitely
probably
a
faced by a
weakness
lot of business
mine.
owners out there is that we love what we do so much that it's easy to overlook that time investment at the end of the day until you look back and realize, I invested so much time in that. The return might not be there, but at the time you felt so good about it, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
it's hard, but that's awesome that you recognize that right off the bat. You answered the next question, and we didn't even have to ask it. So, so we can move
Yeah.
on to opportunities. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I did develop a product to try and utilize recycling of fabric. But once you get into it, and I did analyze my cost and found out that it, took so much time and the cost, it just wasn't worth making.
Sure.
Which is disheartening because, it was, everybody loved the product and
Right. You're excited
it was
about it.
recycling fabric and it's like,
Yeah.
How long ago was
Byrd.
that?
That was about a year and a half ago.
Oh, not so recently.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you just have to nix it and move on and wait for the next idea, and hopefully you'll find the right one.
Yeah.
Well, as we said earlier, when you're developing strategy, it's about choices. Making those choices that are going to allow you to create the best and most value to your customers. And if that was going to get in the way of doing that, then it was a choice that you would not pursue. So maybe there are other opportunities.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
talk about that.
So-
we just love that word.
We love opportunities. Yeah.
That's what I need, more
So the
opportunities.
next block is opportunities. And what opportunities do you feel are really out there for you? For your business?
I don't know. That's why I am
Okay.
struggling a little bit.
Okay.
I just try and network with people and find people that want my services.
Okay.
But
So those are some of the techniques that you've used to uncover or discover opportunities. What are some of the questions that you found most helpful when you work with your clients to try to get them to identify those external opportunities?
So I really start with where their heart is. And the next question on the SWOT analysis is what trends could you take advantage of? For example, changing technology, government, professional or organization policy, or environmental. And I think you hit really big on the reduce, reuse, repurpose trend. You definitely have an opportunity there to pursue that market with your products. Finding the right niche is probably the next step in that. So say your opportunity taking advantage of the repurpose trend. Which of your strengths, if you go back up to your strengths box, which of your strengths could you possibly turn into an opportunity? So if you have a passion for creating memories, do you have an opportunity to reduce and reuse, but also take those memories into, for example, a nonprofit organization? Is there a nonprofit that you could work with to help spread your art and the beauty of what you do? Is there an opportunity to carry over your repurposed trend into the nonprofits, right? Some of the questions, what could you do locally to really capitalize on what you're doing? So are there groups in the area that are also very, very passionate about reducing and reusing and recycling? And a bit on the creative side, the artsy side, that would really just fall in love with your pieces? Are there opportunities there? Are you networking with the right people? So networking is the right answer, getting out there. Are you networking with the right groups, right? What are some of the groups that you go out and talk with? Are you, have you really researched locally what the what the groups are that are also interested in reducing and reusing and repurposing? If not, I would suggest perhaps reaching out to some of those groups and going to some of their meetings and really getting involved and seeing where you can help there.
Yeah, I've done a lot of networking with those types of groups
Okay.
because of my past
Very good.
past 10 years of interest in that area.
Okay.
But yeah, that
What
did
kind of
spark
results do you think you've gotten from that? I mean, that's one thing to reflect back over too when you're doing an analysis like this. Strategy falls somewhere in between the past and where you want to go.
Yep.
What you're doing in the present.
Excellent point.
So, what kind of results have you gotten from that networking? If you were to reflect back over those.
Actually, I haven't gone back. It's like I was on a path and then I've gotten to here, but I haven't circled back around.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. I think it would be very helpful to take some time and reflect over that and say, why am I not still pursuing that, or why am I not pursuing it as vigorously as I was back then? Was it because I wasn't getting the results I expected? And just taking any time you can continue to take those deeper dives and just keep asking yourself questions is really good. And to look for trends, you need to know who are the customers that you're wanting to create that value for. The trends that might apply to 20-somethings wouldn't really perhaps apply to you, but not necessarily. You don't know. You can explore industry research that will help uncover what are those lifestyle trends out there, those socio-cultural trends. Do you remember that from your marketing class?
Yes.
But those things can help to identify what's going on, again, outside of your business, that you just have to give it some more reflection and some more thought. But I would definitely say take a look back at what you've done up to this point and where you want to go from there. We probably need to think about wrapping up just a little bit here and moving on to the last one is to take a look at threats, of course, right? And those are just, competition's always a threat, but don't get focused on the competition.
I'd say you're very unique in that you probably have very little direct competition to what you do. So probably looking at the flip side of trends is really important. While a trend may be up now, there's probably a chance that it's going to go down. So making sure that you evaluate the other side of the coin is important when you're doing any type of analysis, really. And then once you're able to kind of sum up where you are with your SWOT analysis, there's really an opportunity to focus on those strengths and opportunities, to see how you can capitalize off what you've already got that is so fruitful to you. And then let those be the guiding forces for then setting your goals. Wouldn't you say, Cindy?
Yes, I would. And actually, listening to next week's show you'll find helpful as well, because we're going to take a deeper dive into creating that strategic framework, drilling down a little deeper with creating those operational objectives and an actual plan to be able to achieve. So that's our topic for next week. We have a couple of awesome guests joining us, so we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, January the 30th. Thanks for listening in today.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
That was awesome.
PeoriaLife.com